Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. I have returned from the death of the plague, alive and well, and John and I watched UNO play some hockey out in Colorado, and so we've got some fun stuff to talk about today. John, how are you feeling? How are you doing after this weekend?
That was a very interesting series. And going into the weekend, if you had just told me the point totals that UNO would have gotten coming out of the weekend, I would have been like, that was a pretty good weekend for UNO. Knowing the whole story, it's much more interesting. So we'll be getting to that in a little bit. Jason, I'm glad you're feeling better. Sorry you got the plague. Sorry you weren't at the last home series, because I always enjoyed visiting with you at those games. So that was not ideal for you or the podcast. It would have been great to have you on after that sweep against St. Cloud a couple weeks ago, but glad to have you back.
I heard Bridget get my Broberg pick for the weekend there, so I appreciate you guys letting me contribute in a small effect last week.
I would have loved hearing you riff on Broberg. Maybe we'll get to do that at some point in the future. I should also note last week's episode came out a little bit late. Obviously, the episodes after home series or road series that Bridget and I go to take a little bit longer because I'm putting clips and highlights in there. But this last week, we were getting hooked up for Google Fiber on Tuesday. So a day that I would normally spend editing, putting the podcast together, I was not able to do it. But it's great to have new internet at my house, Jason. And I told the two techs who came to hook me up, Gabriel and Jackson, that I'd give them a shout out on this week's episode of the podcast.
There you go. See, now we just need Google to sponsor the podcast, and we could really throw some money behind this. So Google, if you're listening, Google Fiber is awesome. Pay us some money.
That's right. We know that Google Fiber sponsors UNO hockey. They have a dasher board at the game. So sign up for the Mavpuckcast. We would love to pimp your products.
And then their name could be on the list that you might be scrolling through right now.
That's right. And we'd like to thank the founding members of the Mavpuckcast and Mavpuck.com this season. And as Jason mentioned, you are seeing a scroll with the names of the folks who have donated to support Mavpuck.com this season. Their names will also appear at the end of each episode of the Mavpuckcast. And if you would like to support our efforts here at Mavpuckcast and Mavpuck.com, be sure to visit Mavpuck.com/donate. As Jason alluded to, we got to talk about that series out at Denver. Certainly, Magness Arena has been a tough place for UNO to go play over the last decade. Last season, there was a very interesting series up there. It ended up lasting 3 days. The Saturday game ended up being canceled after the first period because there was a problem with the ice at Magness Arena. We ended up staying for that Sunday game. We ended up driving back to Nebraska after the game, getting home in the middle of the night because Jason needed to get back to work, but I'm glad he wanted to stay for that game last season. So that was a very interesting series where UNO got a split. They got a win during that Sunday afternoon game. So this series we were hoping would be a little more normal, but it was anything but normal, Jason.
Oh, that was not. It was another weird year in Denver.
Right. And things looked pretty good in that first period on Friday night. 11:42 into the period, Sam Stang puts UNO up 1-0. Assist to Mitchell and Gavin. That goal came off a rebound from a Gavin shot. So it was 1-0 UNO after one, Jason.
Yeah, and power play goal. You're really liking where UNO was in that first period. I thought that they were kind of holding their own with Denver, which you kind of needed to do because Denver is a powerhouse there, and you knew that there's firepower. And if you let them get too far away from you, there's just no clawing them back.
Right. So UNO goes into that second period with a lead. 40 seconds into the period, Kieran Sebrian ties it up 1-1 for the Pios. But 8:59 into the second, freshman Liam Watkins puts UNO up 2-1. Nice pass by Slipik to set that up, Jason.
Yeah, that was a lot of really hard work by Slipik, and we talked at the beginning of the season about what we wanted to see from different types of players, and that's that kind of hard forechecking. You call it meat and potatoes hockey kind of stuff that we like to see from Slipek, and so he seems to really be kind of finding his role in that, and was very productive in that play.
Absolutely. Also have enjoyed watching freshman Liam Watkins since the first of the year get a little bit more game action for UNO. He was injured early on this season. Nice to see him doing well for UNO here at this point in the season. 14:32 into the second. Brock Bremer puts UNO up 3-1. Great position for them to be in the latter stages of that second period. But this is one of those things that can kind of kill your momentum going into intermission. 25.8 seconds left in the second. DU's Eric Polkamp, player that I profiled on last week's episode of the Mavpuckcast, narrows the lead to 3-2. So it's 3-2 UNO after two, Jason.
Yeah, we've talked about it on prior episodes, and we just have to keep talking about it because we keep letting them in. Those that last like minute or two of a period and the first minute of the two of a period are the two times where it's really deflating to let a goal in. And so especially in that second period, unfortunately, we let in the goal early, and then we let in another goal late. And it doesn't help us in the third because, as you're going to tell them, we let in a goal early in the third. And, that's just, it's really hard on a team because you kind of come out or heading into that locker room thinking you've got an advantage that you suddenly don't have. And you kind of have to rethink strategy a little bit.
112 into that third period. DU Zeev Buyam ties it up 3-3. And it stays knotted at 3-3 the rest of the way through the third period. So it's 3-3, the end of regulation. We're going to that overtime period. And UNO had a number of solid opportunities in that overtime period, but it wasn't meant to be. So we go to a shootout. And I believe this was UNO's first shootout. It was their first shootout of the season.
It's first in a while. I don't really remember very many shootouts last season either.
Yeah, it's been a while. And they certainly made up for lost time in this shootout, Jason. The shootout went 16 rounds. Turned out to be
1-6.
The longest shootout in NCHC history. Erdal, Slipik, Pinanimi, and Nolan Krenzen, our captain, got the goals for UNO in that shootout. What'd you think of the shootout, Jason?
I was really nervous heading into it. There's a couple guys I look at on the team and I think, they're good chances for goals. And then I think, man, Denver's deep and, we could be 10 rounds in and Denver's still putting out guys that are NHL draft picks and things like that. So I just, the more it went on, the more I didn't like our chances. And so, Denver did what most teams will do, right? I want to shoot first. I want to put pressure on the other team. So Denver misses that opportunity in the 16th round. And Krenzen comes out and I'm just thinking, 16th round, we're going with defensemen, right? And like it was just a great shot. He walked in, he saw an opportunity, and he just decided to take it and pick that corner over his shoulder. And just the elation of that win is just huge. Denver's been kind of a thorn in our side for a long time, so even an OT win and stuff like that certainly makes this club feel well and keeps the quote unquote winning streak, at least the point streak, intact for one more game.
Yeah, absolutely. They did not lose that game, so keeps the streak technically alive. The game goes down in the NCAA record books as a 3-3 tie. But as you mentioned, UNO secures that extra point. So a good outcome for UNO, and congratulations to Nolan Krenzen, a guy that we consider more of your kind of prototypical kind of stay-at-home type defenseman. He talked in last week's news conference about how his goal when he's on the ice is to make sure the other team doesn't score. But a great shot, as you mentioned, by him. So, yeah, I was getting down to the nitty gritty there, Jason. I was waiting for Kevin Radler to come in and attempt a shot if that thing went on any longer. So, a good start to the series for UNO. And look, going into that Saturday game, lots of opportunity for the Mavs, and 3:56 into the first. Brady Risk puts UNO up 1-0 on the power play. Nice pass by Glenn in the slot to set that up. So UNO's up 1-0 early, Jason.
Yeah, and early on, I'm thinking a little bit of deja vu. We seem to have a jump to our step, kind of a spring in our skates there at the very, very beginning. And I liked that attitude, the caution to the wind, and just kind of go get it. And obviously the power plays help, but it doesn't last.
I know. And as you alluded to, UNO was good on the power play early in that game, 12 minutes into the first period. Harrison Israels puts UNO up 2-0 on the power play. Risk put a shot on net. Israels deflected it in. A great position for UNO to be in early, but 15 minutes into the first, DU Samu Salmonen narrows the lead to 2-1. And I'll tell you, Jason, DU started to play like a different team after they got that first goal.
Yeah, it was almost like, this has happened to us too many times where a team that shouldn't beat Denver has beat Denver. And I think they just kind of stopped playing with their food, as people would say somewhat. I hate to say it, like, Denver's good, right? They haven't played well. They certainly haven't played like Denver, but they're also a team that knows that they've got a ton of talent there. And the most dangerous thing that they could have is a reason to kind of play, because I think a little bit of it is, we've got that national championship. There's a little bit of that hangover, going into it. And so this is the kind of game that you kind of start wondering, is this the game that turns the season for Denver, or is this just we had a bad night, they had a good game, and you just had the score that we ended up with. And so we'll kind of see what comes of it. But yeah, they started looking like the Denver that won a national championship a lot in that second period.
Yeah, it's awfully tricky playing a team that's a defending national champion, because ultimately their goal is to get back to the NCAA tournament and make another run and hoist another trophy at the Frozen Four in that national championship game. So a lot of times you'll see those teams go through the motion during the season, and you'll think, are they down? Or are they just having trouble getting motivated because this right now is not their focus? What happens in March, that's their focus. And you could kind of see that potentially that could be happening with this DU team the last month or so. It'll be interesting to see how they play the next few weekends in NCHC play. But it was 2-1 after one. So UNO was still in good shape at that point, still had the lead, but 25 seconds into the second period, DU's Rieger Lorenz ties it up 2-2. And then 2:55 into the second, James Reeder makes it 3-2 DU. And the complexion of the game really changed after that. And boy, DU rattled off a lot of unanswered goals after that, Jason.
That 25 seconds in, just like right off the draw, basically, it's a killer. It's a level game. You're not doing what you wanted to do. And then you could just see the team started forcing some passes that shouldn't have been. We were not committing to tracking down pucks in our zone. The system broke down. We were out of position a ton in that second period, especially on that power play that Reeder scores on. And it's just, it starts being one error on top of another and just kind of snowballs away from us.
Yeah, absolutely right. So we get the 2-0 lead in the first period, and then DU, the rest of the game, rattles off 11 unanswered goals. It was 7-2 DU after two. Third period, they added 4 more goals. DU wins 11-2. That was rough. It's been a long time since I've seen a game like that. The last time I was in attendance for a game like that, and I think the last time we gave up double digit goals. In fact, I know the last time we gave up double digit goals was when UNO was playing up at Michigan in the 2008 CCHA playoffs. In the Friday game up there, we ended up losing 10-1. And I was in attendance for it at Yost Ice Arena. And Jason, I think you know how Michigan fans are. That was not a pleasant place to be, giving up 10 goals like that. So yeah, the last time UNO gave up 11 goals in a game was their very first season, the 97-98 season. That game was February 27th, 1998 at Maine. Yeah, UNO came back to win the next night at Maine, but yeah, I did not expect that to happen. I mean, what do you think, Jay? I mean, it just seems like maybe the team was tired. They were worn out. It had been a long game the night before. And obviously, UNO has been playing very well, working very hard, in many respects, overachieving the last month of play. Sometimes this stuff can happen.
Yeah, I think, you know, the two thoughts that kind of run through my head is one for any player, coach, staff, or fan that was eating the soup the last few weeks about how great UNO was and we're on this winning streak and we'll never lose again. And I've seen, that kind of stuff on social and stuff. I mean, this is one of those things like I catch a lot of flack sometimes in past seasons where I've been like, yeah, but wait till you play a team like Denver. This is why I say wait till you play a team like Denver. This is a team that structurally is sound top to bottom and has NHL caliber talent playing in roles that are subpar, right? Like they've got high round draft picks playing in third, fourth line roles. This is a team that can come at you in waves, and when their systems break down and we struggle with some of the basics of playing hockey, those guys are going to kill you, and they did. And it's just like you look at this weekend and you say Friday night is the reason why UNO can play with these teams and in this league, and you're capable of doing it. Saturday night's game is the reason why you won't. So this team's got to, like, it's been a reality check, come back down to earth. The game's over. Who cares? He gave up 11 to Denver, whatever. Moving on. You're still top four team in arguably the best conference in college hockey. So rearview mirror, put it behind you, go back to work, right? Go back to the type of game that we play. And they need to be committed, and they need to be committed for 60 minutes if they want to play with teams like Denver, North Dakota, Western Michigan. You want to be at that caliber. It's going to take 60 minutes of playing the way you've played the last six games, not the way you played Saturday night at Denver.
Yeah, absolutely right. And as I mentioned on last week's episode of the Mavpuckcast, DU is one of those teams that has the talent that they can turn it on at any time. And I think we saw that on Saturday night. Some notes on the series. Denver's 11 goals are the most by an NCHC team this season. UNO earns 2 out of 6 points in that series in Denver. So honestly, not a bad outcome going to Magness Arena, getting 2 out of 6 points against the defending national champions. As I mentioned, the 16 round shootout is the longest in conference history. And UNO has gone 7-2-1 since January 1st. So a good start to the 2025 calendar year for this UNO team. I remember, Jason, you and I talked about it. Some of those games in the first half of the season had us scratching our heads. So they've gotten things going. But again, this is a team that's going to have to play smart, and they're going to have to overachieve to get some things done here down the stretch. Jason, I got to ask you, who is your player of the week for the series out at DU last weekend?
I mean, it's hard because Saturday kind of taints your view of everything, right?
Sure.
Um, but I think there's some things in there that are telling when it comes to a game like that. Um, we glanced at Broberg, and so I didn't get a chance to really like sing his praise last week and stuff. But here's one of our defensemen played over 18 minutes on Saturday night when the team let in 11 goals and managed to be even on the plus minus, and that's huge from a defenseman. All of our other defensemen are multiple point minuses, and our captain was a -4. That's a lot of guys that are better defensemen can play better than what they played on Saturday that didn't. And so, kudos to him. I think the player for me that stuck out from both games though was Slipek. We talked about his grinding it out for that puck on the goal on Friday night. It seemed like when he was on the ice, right, he was noticeable, right? Like he was involved in plays, he was committed to taking the body. Just hard fought, drawing penalties. Kind of that game that we really like out of Bremer the last few years. That Bremer, I've kind of seen the last few games. Bremer's kind of getting into that role again of being a little bit of an annoying person to play against, and the Broxquito that we love to call him and stuff. And Slipek's kind of taken that role too. And if we've got two guys that can just be a pain in the butt to play against, that's just a lot of teams are just not going to want to go there, and that's going to help us out. And so I really like that. And then regardless of Friday, Saturday comes in, he's not nearly as effective, but he still puts up, about 15 minutes of playing time in a 60-minute game. And I think he was if I remember right, he was a -1 or -2, in a team that like there's 11 goals that are scored against you, single digit minuses are like, there's probably players with double-digit minuses that are on the ice for all of them, kind of thing. Like 1 or 2 on 11, like 1 or 2 on 2 is one thing. 1 or 2 on 11 is like that's actually pretty good. You weren't hurting your team too much when you're out there. So yeah, I really like Slipik games this weekend. I really hope that that's kind of a sign of things to come from him, and we start seeing him produce more and be a little bit more of that grindy forward we like.
Yeah, completely agree on Jacob Slipek. One assist in that Friday game and a goal in that 16 round shootout. So love Jacob Slipek, a guy who plays with a lot of heart. He has 1 goal and 3 assists this season. So yeah, a good series overall for him. Jason and I have been singing his praises all season long. I'm going to do something I normally don't do. I normally don't pick the same player 2 weeks in a row, but I'm going to do that this week. I'm picking junior forward Tyler Rollwagon, a player kind of like Slipek, who's not one of the flashy superstars on the team, but he's a guy who plays hard. He's a guy who plays with a lot of heart. He had 2 assists in the Friday game. Tyler has 1 goal and 7 assists since January 1st for the Mavericks. And overall, he has 3 goals and 10 assists. And I just love the way he plays. Again, not one of the flashy players on this team, but a solid forward for UNO.
Yeah, he's had a really good campaign the last few weeks, and it's good to see him get rewarded for things too. Sometimes those players put in a lot of work and just don't see it pay out for them, and so I'm happy that he's kind of getting that reward for that effort.
Absolutely right. But Jason, we've got to talk about the NCHC standings. It's a tight race. It's a tight race in the National Collegiate Hockey Conference right now. Arizona State is in first place currently with 34 points. They are tied with Western Michigan, who also has 34 points in conference play. Now, Arizona State has played 16 conference games. Western Michigan has played 14. So Western Michigan has 2 games in hand, so an opportunity to get more points here down the stretch. in the conference race than some of the other teams. The other teams that only have played 14 games in the conference race are North Dakota, Denver, and Minnesota Duluth. So those teams have 2 games in hand. They've had bye weeks early already. Omaha is sitting in third place with 31 points. So overall, Jason, I think a pretty good place for UNO to be.
Yeah, I mean, definitely higher than what we expected. And the other good thing is that you look at North Dakota and Denver, and those two teams are far enough back that their games in hand don't just outright kill us. And so that's a good place to be in, to say like we've got a legitimate shot at home ice advantage in the first round of the NCHC playoffs. And Western and Arizona State are both within striking distance, and so I don't know that we're there yet, but first place finish in the NCHC at least is not out of the question for UNO, which is just a good place to feel. Like as a fan, it's got to feel good to say like, hey, at least we got a shot, right? Especially all the talk at the beginning of the season about, this team's not going to be all that good. And I've heard people like, I don't know what we're going to get with these new guys. And, Israel's and Risk were not kind of what we expected early on in the season. And so you started kind of wondering like what that meant for the team. And so their games picked up. They've been more productive. We've talked about that. And that's really brought this team into the conversation of the top teams in the NCHC.
Yeah, great position for the Mavs to be in. I would say probably the biggest surprise this season has been St. Cloud State, who is in eighth place. I did not see that coming. And certainly Arizona State has been a surprise being in first place. They played really well their first season in conference play as a program. So Greg Powers has done a good job with that program. He did a good job bringing in some veteran talent in the offseason. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting race for UNO down the stretch here, Jason, and we're here for it. We're looking forward to watching that. And speaking of that, we've got Minnesota Duluth coming to town this upcoming weekend, February 7th and 8th. Duluth is currently in 7th place in the NCHC, but they're knocking on the door of the top half. They're just 6 points behind North Dakota for that 4th spot. So very young team. UMD is 10-13-1 overall. They're 6-8-0 in NCHC play. They're coming off a bye week. They split with Denver on January 24th and 25th at Amsoil Arena. UMD is led by Scott Sandlin, who has been at Duluth for 150 years now, Jason. He is 466, 401, and 101 in 25 seasons at Minnesota Duluth. Jason, what are your initial thoughts on the Bulldogs coming in this weekend? As I mentioned, a young team, so we knew it was going to be an adventure, but I'm excited to see them come into Baxter Arena.
Yeah, I always like watching Duluth play. They seem to play a same style every year, and you always know you're going to get a good effort from them. On paper, these two teams match up pretty well together, so I expect no matter what a good game. UNO's got to look at this like they've got to put that Denver game in their rearview mirror, and they have to look at the reality of what it is. This could be the best weekend for Omaha hockey in a long time. Denver's got Arizona State, so if Denver pulls off the sweep, you've got a chance to jump ahead of Arizona State in the rankings. Cara College and North Dakota are playing each other, so either way that goes, probably not going to hurt us. But split would be great for us because that would keep both of those teams behind us. And then you've got Western Michigan playing St. Cloud. And like you said, St. Cloud's kind of been that surprise of the season because everyone expected them to be better. They're probably a better team than what their record says. And so if they go into Western and manage to pull off, some miraculous sweep or something, like that could be huge for Omaha if they get that sweep. 6 points when the teams ahead of you are losing and the teams behind you are splitting, and you're going to put some gap there that's going to give you some breathing room down the stretch.
Absolutely. A big opportunity for redemption for UNO against UMD this weekend. Big opportunity to get 6 points. And honestly, probably our best opportunity to get 6 points in a series for the rest of the regular season. So UNO hopefully will take advantage of that. Some players to watch. Two players that I'm very excited to see are the Plant brothers from Hermantown, Minnesota. Freshman forward Zam Plant is fourth on the team in points with 4 goals and 12 assists. And his brother, freshman forward Max Plant, is fifth on the team in points with 6 goals and 8 assists. Tell you what, Jason, I saw interviews with them before the season, and they both look like they're 12 years old. So it'll be interesting to see those guys. They have proven themselves very capable as young players in the NCHC. So they're going to be exciting to watch here the next couple of years and this upcoming weekend at Baxter Arena. Senior forward Dominic James, he leads the team with 10 goals and 11 assists. And all 3 goalies have seen action in net this season, Jason. Freshman Adam Gajon from Poprad, Slovakia, injured his ankle in December, and he hasn't seen playing time since November. So I don't know that we'll see him this upcoming weekend. It'll be interesting to see if that injury is still an issue. But freshman goalie Clayton Knapp has been the featured goalie since January 1st. He has a 2.36 goals against average and a .915 save percentage. Jason, how do you think we'll do? Will we get swept? Will we split? Will we sweep? How do you think we're going to do against the Bulldogs? See, I had to give you the little spiel there.
Yeah, we needed the intro. I appreciate it.
Yep.
I'm going to say that we sweep, and
Okay.
the reasons being, like, one, I think that this team has too much pride with what they've done prior to the Denver series to just roll over and say, well, we had one bad game in Denver and that's the end. I think they want to prove a point that that was a fluke. And having a home series afterwards, I think, is a huge thing for them because they will feed off the fans, so fans that, if you don't have tickets, go out and get them, pack Baxter, make it a loud environment. I know the guys have talked about how much they appreciate that. And I know other teams have talked about how the atmosphere at Baxter can be a bit of a challenge for them to deal with because the fans are rowdy and loud. And so students back on campus, I just think it's going to be a great environment. So come out to a game because it's going to be awesome. But I also look at this game and say, like, these two teams are matched up very evenly when it comes to forwards, defensemen, a lot of that production. And so I expect that we're going to come down to a bit of a goaltending battle. And when I look at the goaltenders, you look at Duluth, like you just read out, and, they've got a goaltender that's a bit untested. And how he deals with an environment like Baxter is a question leading into that. But we know what we've got with Simon. And Radler, when he's been in net, has been pretty solid. And so even if for some reason we split goaltenders or something happens in, either way, I feel comfortable with both of those goaltenders. And so push comes to shove in these close games. I just think that that's going to kind of tilt Omaha's direction. Plus being at home. Plus we've had pretty good luck against Duluth the last few series. I just think, like, we're matching up better with Duluth than we do with some other teams. And so I think for those reasons that I certainly hope so. And I think so that Omaha's going to come away with the sweep this weekend.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. The fans have an opportunity to be a factor, as you alluded to in your comments there. And I think for UNO, I think they're going to want to get the bad taste out of their mouth from that Saturday game, letting DU put up 11 goals on them. This is a team that works hard. They have a lot of pride, and I think they're going to want to make a statement this weekend against Minnesota Duluth. I also think our maturity will come into play this weekend, and this team has played well at Baxter Arena, especially during the second half of this season, Jason. So I'm calling the sweep. Friday and Saturday's games will be at 7:07 p.m. Central Time at Baxter Arena. Friday will be country and cowbells night. I don't know if the students are going to get cowbells for the games, or fans are going to get cowbells for the games. So that could be a lot of fun if that happens.
We do like a good cowbell at UNO, so
We do. It's thematically on brand. Lots of fans bring cowbells to the games. Saturday's game will be Maverick Miracle Night, and UNO Dance Marathon will have collection boxes at the entrance. They are selling teddy bears that you can buy. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, I will have the link for that visible if you want to buy bears before the games. They will also have folks who have QR codes that you can scan if you want to make a monetary donation. And the bears and the donations will go to Rainbow House with Children's Nebraska. So this was originally supposed to be, at least I thought it was supposed to be, a teddy bear toss. So lots of
I want to do a teddy bear toss so bad.
I'll tell you what, I'm just going to keep chipping away, and eventually we're going to get a teddy bear toss at a UNO hockey game. I don't care how long it takes. If you would like to listen to the games, they will be on the radio here in Omaha on 1290 Coil, or online anywhere on the Varsity Network app. Mike Valancourt and Terry Leahy will, as always, have the call. If you want to watch the games on TV this weekend, if you're not listening on the radio, if you're not coming to Baxter Arena, both games will be on NCHC TV, so you might want to get subscribed for that. And of course, be sure to follow Mavpuck on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find links to all of our social channels at mavpuck.com, as well as back episodes of this podcast, which we encourage you to watch, encourage you to listen to, get subscribed for those. But Jason, until next time, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.